Greetings. My name is Mark Amata Pinkham. I am the director of the Order and Mystery School of the Seven Rays, and I am your host during this two-part series on the return of the Serpents of Wisdom. We in the Order and Mystery School of the Seven Rays are dedicated to bringing you complete and easy to understand video presentations such as this one that, as accurately as possible, reveal the true history of the human race, much or most of which has been hidden. If you would like to be alerted of any new videos we produce, please click on the subscribe button below, and we do plan on producing a number of them in the days to come. Now, in this video presentation, I will offer you a synopsis of my book, The Return of the Serpents of Wisdom, which covers the history, teachings, and practices of enlightened masters who have manifested all over the world and been known as serpents and dragons. In each civilization, they were the teachers of the Gnostic-Alchemical Path that leads to God realization, which is the realization that God exists within me as me. These serpents and dragons were also priest kings and builders of the great megalithic temples and pyramids that still exist in most of the ancient countries. And at one point, they created a worldwide dragon culture that completely encircled the globe. This is part two of the two-part series. I'll begin with a short review of part one and then move on to new information. As mentioned in part one, the Serpents of Wisdom originated in the many gardens of Eden that have manifested on earth at the beginning of long cycles of time. Each Eden had its own version of the serpent on the tree, which was an enlightened master savior who taught early humanity the Gnostic alchemical path that makes one a serpent of wisdom and leads to God realization. These gardens of Eden are collectively called the Gardens of the Dragons, because in each one of them, enlightened adepts known as serpents and dragons taught the first humans of each new cycle the sacred and mundane arts that were destined to be part of that cycle. One of these Gardens of the Dragons was Tiwanaku in Bolivia. Its manifestation corresponded to the end of the great planetary deluge that sunk the great continent of Atlantis. Following each of the Gardens of the Dragons, the enlightened serpents of wisdom streamed out of their various Edens and traveled the high energy vortex regions on the Earth's grid. There they built dragon kingdoms that contained huge megalithic temples and towering pyramids. Around these structures, they founded dragon cultures within which they ruled as dragon kings and as the heads of the mystery school traditions. Eventually, such dragon kingdoms manifested all over the globe, and together they created a worldwide dragon culture. Now, within these various dragon kingdoms that were part of the worldwide dragon culture, you could find 7 consistent elements. Number 1, within each one of them, there was a dissemination of alchemical practices by adepts known as dragons and serpents that lead to the awakening of the inner serpent power known as Kundalini. Number 2, there was veneration of a form of the primal dragon that created the cosmos. Number 3, there was belief that the goal in life is to alchemically transform and acquire the power and wisdom of the primal dragon, which includes the highest Gnostic wisdom of God realization. Number 4, there was rule by a dragon king who was venerated as a personification of the primal dragon on earth. Number 5, there was construction of megalithic temples and pyramids, which were initiation chambers and homes of the fire serpent. Number 6, there was repetition of a dragon name that invoke the primal serpent, as well as indigenous dragon serpent names for the enlightened serpents and dragons. And number 7, there was observance of dragon calendars that charted the movements of the celestial dragons, Pleiades, Venus, Alpha Draconis, and others. From their Gardens of the Dragon on the Pacific continent of Lemuria and Mount Kailash, Serpents of Wisdom traveled into the subcontinent of India and founded dragon kingdoms, when they became known as Nagas, which is a Sanskrit word meaning serpents. In what is now the states of Maharashtra, Bihar, Kashmir, Orissa, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, and others, dragon kingdoms arose, which were governed by Naga kings, and within which the enlightened Naga adepts taught the alchemical practices of yoga that culminate in Kundalini activation and God realization. Most of these Naga adepts were tantric Shaivites and devotees of Lord Shiva, whom they referred to as the Lord of the Nagas. And most were in lineages of siddhas, meaning perfected masters, that had originated with Shiva's son, Sanatkumbara. Their symbols included the golden cobra. Gold is the color of perfection. When added to the cobra, it symbolized the perfection these Naga adepts had achieved. Those dragons and serpents who arrived in China from Lemuria became known as the Lung, which is a Chinese word denoting dragon. The symbols of these Chinese serpents of wisdom included the blue dragon and the golden dragon. Some of the earliest Lung ruled the Chinese dragon kingdom as the 5 original dragon emperors. Both they and their dragon king successors possessed the power and wisdom of the primal dragon, as well as the physical features of a dragon. These features included great height, oversized and abnormally shaped heads, leather-like skin, multi-jointed arms, 2 pupils in each eye, and dragon whiskers even at birth. These dragon emperors learned the art of creating the alchemical elixir of immortality and many other alchemical arts that eventually became the foundational practices of Taoism. Many Taoist alchemists became Shen, which means immortals, and they acquired the supernatural dragon powers, such as flying through the air, dancing on rainbows, and being able to fall from a cliff or even walk through a wall of fire without being the least bit affected. In Egypt, the Serpents of Wisdom became known as a Jedi, which is a name which denotes both serpent as well as column or spine. The Jedi were those who had raised the inner serpent of Kundalini up their spine to the third eye and achieved intuitive serpent wisdom and mastership of the serpent power. Their symbols ranged from the golden asp to the winged disc, which is a form of the primal dragon that they placed over the entrances of their temples. Other symbols of the Jedi include the Jedi pillar, which represented the sacrum, seat of the path of the serpent fire in the human body. Also, their symbol was the wasp scepter, which symbolized the serpent power that each Jedi owned within them. Each Jedi carried one of these wasp scepters with them. The base of the wasp denoted the polarity that unites at the base of the human spine. The middle part of the wasp denotes the spine itself, and the head at the top of the wasp scepter denoted the third eye of wisdom that is awakened by the ascending serpent power. The Jedi had originated on Atlantis as the students of a lineage of masters known as the Thoth Hermes, who were part of a larger organization of alchemists known as the Order of the Kabiri. Through alchemy, they had developed their serpent powers and the wisdom of the primal serpent, which they also referred to as Thoth Hermes. After migrating to Egypt, the Thoth Hermes masters founded the lineage of the Jedi masters, and together they built many of the earliest pyramids and temples in the country, and then ruled over their new land as dragon kings or dragon pharaohs who wore the serpent wisdom over their third eyes. The Quetzalcoatls, meaning plume serpents, were the enlightened serpents of wisdom of Mexico and Central America. They descended from the Atlantean serpents and dragons, who, after fleeing their motherland during its destruction, sailed in ships covered in snakeskin to the Veracruz coast of Mexico, and then up the Panuco River to a very special vortex. There they built a temple city known as Timoanchan, meaning the place where the people of the serpent landed. Timoanchan Quetzalcoatl missionaries were sent throughout Mesoamerica to found the dragon empires of the Olmec, the Maya, and the Toltec. In each of these Mesoamerican dragon empires, they built lofty pyramids for initiation and activation of the inner alchemical serpent. The Adas and Adred were the enlightened serpents and dragons of Britain. These serpents of wisdom were principally the enlightened adepts known as Druids, who had arrived in Britain as part of the Celts and other early tribal migrations. They carried with them the serpent wisdom of both East and West that had emanated out of the gardens of dragon of Mount Kailash and Atlantis. They both developed their serpent powers and wisdom, and like the Druid Merlin, many of them captured or created interdimensional dragons that they trained to do their bidding. One sect of Druid adders in Wales was known as the Feral, the alchemists. They were venerators of goddess Cerridwen, a dragoness whose power they invoked and moved through them. The mottos were the enlightened serpents of wisdom in Peru and the Andes. Most of them were descended from serpent masters who had come to the Andes as missionaries from Lemuria and founded dragon empires along the Peruvian coast and in the mountains. Their dragon empires included the kingdoms of the Incas, as well as Chamu and Chavin do Montor. In Chavin, covered their pyramids with dragon heads. In the center of their pyramidal compound, they erected a version of the serpent on the tree, referred to today as El Lanzon, the lance. It's an upright form of the primal dragon that unites the worlds and the dimensions. Throughout history, serpents of wisdom have often traveled there in their etheric bodies and ascended this body of the primal dragon to a desired dimension or world. One of the missionaries in the Andes was Aramumuru or Amaramuru, which means the serpent Muru. Aramumuru founded the dragon kingdom of the Incas and reigned as its first priest king, known as Manco Capac. The center of the Inca Empire was Cusco, with its zigzag serpent temple known as Sacsayhuaman. It was here that initiations to activate the inner Kundalini serpent, known as Kori Matakwai, the golden serpent, were administered. Manco Capac passed his serpent power down a lineage of Inca kings whose later coat of arms during colonial times and featured a horizontal snake at its top. Another sacred temple compound of the Inca Empire where Kundalini initiations occurred was Machu Picchu, which has been called the place where humans learn to fly. Initiations took place on the terraced pyramid beginning at its base in the sacred plaza or lower serpent temple that corresponded to the human root chakra. Initiations continued along the stairway that mimicked the human spine. They were completed at the top of the stairway in the little temple of the Intihuatana that corresponded to the third eye chakra. Now I'm going to be speaking of the prophecies related to the return of the serpents of wisdom. Prophecies held by the prophets of both the Hopis and Yazidis maintain that the first serpent of wisdom and his entourage of star people will soon be returning to Earth. The first serpent, of course, who is also known as the serpent on the tree in the Garden of Eden, merged with Earth and became the planetary logos and king of the world. So his return will be the mass awareness that he did and continues to exist and oversee Earth from an etheric dimension that surrounds and interpenetrates our planet. His entourage are believed to be soon returning in spacecraft, many which have already arrived but have only been seen by a chosen few. They began arriving in the 1970s and will accelerate their return soon. These cosmic serpents of wisdom will return to those people on Earth who have descended from them, such as the Hopis, as well as to those places on Earth that they helped build, such as Palaquakbi, which is a name of the ancient temple city they built that Sedona, Arizona now sits upon. And in front of you are the red rock formations in Sedona that are the vestigial remains of Palaquakbi. The serpents of wisdom are also returning as those of us who will soon become God realized and possess the power and wisdom of serpents and dragons. This event is also prophesied and is due to occur during the coming fifth world that Native American prophecy predicts will arrive any time now. The book in front of you, The Return of the Serpent's Wisdom, was first published in 1997. And it is the complete story of these serpents and dragons that came here from other realms and other worlds, and exactly their whole history on planet Earth, including their rites and teachings. And 3 years ago, it was republished in a revised and expanded edition. And so it's kind of become the go-to book for those who are interested in the history and teachings of the Serpents of Wisdom. So if you haven't read it, and even if you have, I think it's an essential book for those that are on the spiritual path. And if you would like a copy, you can go to our website, www.sevenrayorder.com. And even if you're not interested in that particular book, we have many others, many other books and DVDs, courses, so forth and so on. And there's even the possibility to become a member of the Order of the Seven Rays, if that is what's drawing you. So please check it out if you get a chance, www.sevenrayorder.com. It's got the teachings of the ancient serpents of wisdom, and especially the first serpent of wisdom, the original founder of the Gnostic-Alchemical Path. So thank you for watching. And if you haven't already pressed the subscribe button, please do that now. And we will be speaking to you again soon with further video presentations such as this one. Namaste. Bye for now.